Hail, hail, the Celts are here, and it's that time of week again where we're going to be going on our travels. We're going to be going around the world of football to try and unearth some of the talent out there that Celtic could sign, could bring into the club to make the best 11, to make the overall squad complexion much, much stronger, much more robust as we prepare for a very successful, hopefully, 25-26 season. Today's episode takes us to Germany. This is where I'd kind of earmarked to cover Germany, the Bundesliga, and the Bundesliga 2 perhaps a little bit as well. But actually, similar to last week, you know, it just kind of felt good to kind of go there anyway, because we've had a bit of a link already. Last week we went to France off the back of the Heba Jurassic links. Feel free to check that out if you've missed it already. After episode 1, which was domestic talent, which we were focusing on. At the end of this video, it will pop up on screen for the whole playlist in case you want to check out any of the episodes you've missed, as we do this every Wednesday at 5 o'clock for the foreseeable future until I run out of places to scout for Celtic as we get towards that summer transfer window. At any point in the video today, if you do laugh, you learn, you like something or whatever, please do like and subscribe to the channel for more content like this. We recently smashed through 11,000 subscribers and we are firing our way towards our next target of 1888, and we cannot do that without your support. So if you do enjoy the content here, hit the subscribe button. It's absolutely free and it goes a long way to supporting the channel and helping us grow so we can find more jungle gyms to jump into the comment section. And I must say, across all Celtic fan media, the comment section on this channel is the most fire, the most flames happening here. The Mother's Day banter on the last video was absolutely peak, but on top of that, great suggestions, great shouts, great POVs are coming in the comment section on every video on, you know, breakdowns and analysis of the matches and all the rest of it, as well as the scouting one. So I always look forward to catching the comment section, and feel free to drop your thoughts and feelings down there, of course. And yeah, let's just get stuck straight into this one. Because in episode 1, we kind of laid out the lay of the land for how the squad is sitting come this summer. You know, Tierney in, the other contracts that are out. So episode 1, the domestic talent one, is a bit longer than what will probably be the kind of average or the kind of mean. And in that video, we started to build our own watch list, our own transfer kind of scouting, you know, wish list as it were. And we're looking to compare and contrast that against the squad that we have at the moment, as well as the laundry list of, the to-do list that we believe Celtic should have in this upcoming transfer window. The Jurassic link that we had last week is certainly, we need another winger that might not be too precious on how many minutes they get and stuff like that. They know they're going to develop and whatever. So that was kind of nice to see that there was already an early link to something that I think all Celtic fans on balance would look at the squad and say, yeah, there's a place in the squad for a guy like that. And equally, the link that we've had this week to a player in the Bundesliga kind of goes along that same kind of vein again of, yeah, that's the sort of guy we would like to see come in here in terms of their profile and their overall abilities. And the player I'm talking about is Kosovo. I'm not sure if he's the captain, but he's certainly an experienced international for a young international side that Kosovo is, and that is Elvis Rexhbecaj. Is my best guess at that. I'm just going to stick to calling him Elvis, and I recommend you do the same. But he is a centre midfielder who is relatively versatile, to be honest with you, who plays for Augsburg. That might seem a bit familiar to a few of you. And if we look at his performances and how he's been doing for Augsburg this season, he's been kind of in amongst it. He's one of their key players. If they are going to have a good match and really open a team up and keeping it tight at the back, etc., he's a guy that gets his hands dirty in really all aspects of the match. And even from deep lying positions here, he can get goals for his country. He can get assists in the Bundesliga. But really, there's not a huge amount to go on here. Augsburg are a team that generally struggle in the Bundesliga. And like we seen with Arne Engels when we previewed him, when we signed him from this team last year, is that because they are they're not going to dominate possession, they're not going to actually be on the ball that often. These kind of metrics, whether it be sofa score you use or anything else, I prefer Sorare statistics out of 100. It's just a nice kind of metric, and the statistics they capture are very transparent and very easy to understand and kind of balance them up. So it's hard to see like them actually getting statistically recognised for a lot of stuff that they'll do kind of on the ball here. But he takes set pieces, he likes to get amongst a tackle and an interception, kind of does a little bit of everything in midfield. So at 27, an international that has been playing in a top 5 league. This is a good profile of a guy that if he did come into the squad, you wouldn't be too upset. He has some versatility. He can play in some different positions here as well. He's not just a one-trick pony. And this guy has been around the block in the Bundesliga for a couple of seasons. This was his tail of the tape, as it were, previously at Cologne. And this is his tail of the tape from being at Bochum. Now, you can probably guess from those 3 clubs, Cologne are not in the Bundesliga anymore. That might change depending on how this season goes. Bochum probably going to get relegated this year. Augsburg won't get relegated this year. They've normally kind of flirt with relegation, but this year they actually been on a bit of a hot run. They're kind of sitting in the top 10 at the moment, unlikely to capture European football, but I'm sure they're going to try their best to get there. And like you can see, they've been on a great run, so they're not going to be any jeopardy of being relegated or anything like that. But for a player like Elvis here, who is 27, been involved for German football across his career, and really particularly in the Bundesliga with some of the clubs that we've mentioned before being at Wolfsburg, it looks like as a younger player, can play all across the midfield in terms of attacking midfield, defensive, and also centre. His contract, once we get to the summer, he'll be in the last year of it, and I think that's part of the thing that's maybe put him on the Celtic radar, or at least the rumour mill's radar for this one. And a guy that, again, market value generally isn't anything too exorbitant here, a player that would be very affordable for us. But ultimately, with Elvis here, I just think it's a bit of a tame transfer. Again, he's got no Champions League experience, he's got no real big club experience. And, different to Engels in the sense that Engels has the ability to, I'm not saying this guy doesn't have the ability to improve or whatever, but it feels too tame, is probably the best way of putting it. Especially when you compare it to some of the players we've already featured from Scotland, never mind France and the other players we see in the video here, that, yeah, this guy would probably work out quite well domestically. Champions League wise, he won't be scared certainly of if we played Bayern or Leverkusen or Dortmund or any of these types of teams, because obviously he's played them a bunch of times, and there's a bit of value from playing in a top 5 league in that respect, where when you do come across these bigger teams in Champions League, there's a little bit of fear, a little bit less fear factor that maybe comes into it in terms of the whole new experience kind of angle with players like Elvis here. But for me, this is a kind of soft no. It's not really one I would want to go for. Personally, if you think about the midfield and what we're kind of missing and what we all believe that we're seeking, it is like a core anchored defensive midfielder. But because McGregor is the captain, he is nailed, he is going to play every game, it's kind of hard to imagine who we could bring in that is happy to, not quite be a second string player, but certainly have very limited chances of being in the best 11 in the immediate term, but still have that motivation to kind of go on and prove themselves and develop from being at Celtic, playing in Europe, winning trophies and all the rest of it. And one player that on this channel has actually featured a few times over the last couple of years when we're doing scout reports and wish list players and all that kind of thing, currently finds himself in the Bundesliga at the moment, a little bit cut adrift, and that is Skelly Alvaro. Now, Skelly broke onto the scene from Sochaux, or depends how you want to say it, but that's I believe how you say it in France. Sochaux, yellow and blue, that team. You've maybe seen them in football games and stuff. They have one of the best academies in France, certainly one of the top academies in Europe. And from there, he's went to Lyon, and then subsequently he's went on to Werder Bremen. Now, both these clubs are quite well known for getting it right, especially with young up-and-coming players. Bundesliga have got a very good track record as a league of bringing young French players into the top flight. But as you can see here for Wolfsburg, he's barely featuring, and it's not as if when he does feature, he's really pulling up trees or anything like that. A lot of his appearances are from the bench, and if we zoom out past this season back to when he signed for Bremen, so there's not really much to go on here. Lyon did give him a crack at the whip. He got 6 starts for them, 2 appearances off the bench. He scored a wee goal, which is fun as well, before giving away a penalty in a game that they lost to Lens. Lens actually qualified for Europe and stuff, and Lyon didn't, so I don't know if he's maybe had to carry the can for that ever so slightly. But if we look at his time in Ligue 2 with Sochaux, and again we kind of looked at this in the last video for context, you can compare this to some of the guys we featured in the last video. A very physically dominant defensive midfielder, quite clearly a cut above the rest for a team that were losing, not doing that great at the time. And yes, some of his better scores have came in when they've had better results. They've maybe eventually won the match, maybe kept a clean sheet, low scoring game draw, whatever it might be. But this is back when he was 19 or something like that, so very young prospect and showing very early signs of promise, which made Lyon buy him, which made Bremen take him in on loan after Lyon didn't want him anymore to have a look at him. And the loan, I think the loan had an obligation to buy, so I don't think it was necessarily the loan audition kind of thing super worked out. I think it was a loan with option to buy. One of the most staggering things about this guy is his height. He is 2 meters tall. He is an absolute giant of a defensive midfielder, and let's say very physically imposing. You will not miss him when he's on the pitch, and he's very clearly a defensive midfielder. His contract with Bremen is up in 2028, but his market value is on the way down. It's kind of as low as it's been according to Transfermarkt, of course. Here he's barely getting into the side, of course, as well at Werder Bremen, and this is like a Nicholas Kuhn kind of thing, where it's like that kind of fallen star, the guy that might have been on and had a big career, and then they hit a bump in the road and they need to kind of get back into a successful environment where they feel that they're contributing. They are contributing when required as well. And they've still got that belief of, this could jettison their career to the heights that they maybe once thought it could reach. And I think, compared to Elvis, what would the transfer fee be for both those guys? I would think it to be quite similar. This guy feels like he just complements what we need a bit more than Elvis, who feels like a bit more of a jack of all trades, very versatile, which has actually got a good bit of value, I think, to us. But I really want someone who's just got that nose for sniffing out danger, just to be in the right spot at the right time. The guy's physical attributes are off the charts, so domestically, if we have to throw him in against anyone, he's going to be bodying people. And then when you get to that elite level, the physical attributes are the difference. So if we can bring his ability up as a player to marry what we've seen from him coming out of the academy in France, this could just tick every Celtic box, where you take a guy for 3 million, 4 million euros out of the Bundesliga, give him a couple of years at Paradise, and then move him into one of the big leagues for 15 million quid or something like that. Now, like I mentioned, versatility certainly has a value for any prospective transfer we're going to bring into the squad, because really the more jobs a guy can do, the better it is for the balance in the team. And, Elvis does give us a bit of that, of course. But the versatility of someone like a Robert Skov, who, if you're not familiar, this guy was an absolute firecracker in the Danish league. And then since then, he's been at Hoffenheim and now Union Berlin in the Bundesliga. He's done quite okay, he's done quite well. He does suffer regularly from injuries at this kind of level, sadly for him. And it does feel that at 28, he's kind of reached his peak in terms of being in a top 5 league, and how big of a club could he find himself at in that kind of setting. As you can see here, he can play left mid, right mid, left back, right back. He can play. This guy can genuinely play everywhere but centre back. He is super versatile. Can take set pieces as well. Is a bit of a maverick when he gets going. And this is a guy I don't want to put him in the same breath as an absolute gift from God legend, but he's kind of got a little bit of the Lubos about him, where you could play him really anywhere. That's probably the best way of just kind of summing that up, where he's got that versatility. He's a good player, good techers, doesn't matter if he's on the left or on the right, he's equally comfortable pretty much everywhere. And because of the way his careers went, the injury record that he kind of has, if we brought him in and he was a little bit maybe covered at left back, but also maybe the first sub off the bench for really anyone in attacking midfield, right mid, left mid, up front, I don't think he would be too upset at not being the nailed on starter, not being in the best 11, given the strength of squad that we have and the role that he could come in and fill. And that's a big part of some of the transfers that we do want to bring in this window. Is there's a kind of established order of a best 11 under Rodgers at the moment, and although we want players that believe and have the ability to change that up and get themselves into the picture or whatever, we're not going to buy that many players that are going to have that ability or even that potential. And there's going to be guys that should be pretty much around the level, but there's maybe something that would stop them commanding being a best 11 player or expecting it upon signing. Because the thing, it's not you promise people minutes and stuff, but you don't want to bring a guy in and then totally wreck them, like we've done with some of the centre backs over the last couple of years or whatever. It's a waste of money for us, it's a waste of time for the player, and really it's just a wasted exercise for everyone involved. Whereas with Skov, if we gave him a 2 or 3 year deal, it's listen, we're going to be playing in all these competitions, 60, 70 games a season, whatever it works out to be. You're going to play a significant number, you'll win medals, you'll be really important to the team, but in the biggest matches, it's not a guarantee that you're going to be playing unless someone else is missing. I think he would be a good guy to bring in. Let's say injury is his biggest kind of fly in the ointment here. He did just sign Union Berlin as being a free contract, Danish international. He's won the Danish league and all the rest of it from being at Copenhagen, top goal scorer as well. And his record at Copenhagen was absolutely wild. You can go check it out. He's really on a low now in terms of his market value because of his age and his contractual situation as well, of course. And really, I don't think this is a player that carries much financial risk if the wage packet is correct. Union Berlin probably wouldn't be taking a huge transfer fee since they got him for nothing last summer after leaving Hoffenheim. And it was kind of thought at this point he might have went back to Copenhagen or taken that kind of step out of the top 5 leagues. But Union Berlin brought him in. He's been pretty good for them, to be honest with you. It is unknown on this how long his contract is for. But all the same, if we were interested in him, I dare say this is a deal that could be made to happen. And there's that kind of wily fox, talent, maverick kind of guy that could just come in and give a little bit of something different, really, ultimately, is probably the best way of summing that up. Similar to Skelly Alvaro, Nicholas Dorsch has probably featured on this channel once or twice over the years as well. This is a guy I was a huge fan of about 4 years ago when he was kind of breaking out of the academy in the Bayern Munich academy and made his way to Belgium, where he was like the best midfielder in Belgium for a year. So much so, it got him a big money move off the back of Germany winning the Euro under-21s with him in the midfield to, you guessed it, they know how to pick a midfielder out apparently, according to the Celtic scouts. Augsburg. Dorsch has had a few injury problems. He didn't really break in at Augsburg. Arne Engels probably helped a little bit with that. He's found himself back at Heidenheim, which is a team that he's formerly played for as well, and he's really starting to get into the groove of things. Now, injuries do still kind of plague this guy from time to time, periods out the squad and whatever, but Dorsch is a proper German defensive midfielder. He's quite small, but that's probably the main thing that I would say holds him back. He's like the size of a tatty, but like stocky. He's got a nose for danger. He's great at tackling, dueling, all that good stuff. But he's also like, when he was in Belgium, he was like the main guy on the ball, the main like Callum McGregor kind of figure, you know. So again, very similar to Skov and Skelly Alvaro. I don't think there would be a huge expectation if we bought someone like Nicholas Dorsch that he's going to walk into the team. He will believe that he has the ability to do so, of course. He would have the ability to walk into the void if we did sell somebody, or we lost somebody to injury or suspension or whatever, so he's got that in him, which is good. But if everyone was fit and available, again, he can be like one of the first subs off the bench and can cover a few different positions without being like the attacking midfielder. And at 27 years of age, like, this is a guy that's came through a big academy, is a highly decorated youth international as well. This is the sort of guy that wants to play Champions League football, wants to win titles, wants to win medals. From his time at Bayern, I don't know how how accurate his I don't know how justified it is to say he's a Bundesliga champion and whatever. I think this is a little bit stretching it. I'm not too sure he really featured in those seasons, but certainly a German under-21 Euro champion. And if we look at this page, is there any more on it? He's won the Tourneo International, the Algarve under-17 title as well, so that's quite fun to see. He joined Heidenheim last summer. His contract is up in 2028, and like I say, at 1m78, he's not exactly a big, powerful centre midfielder. But he's got that quality, he's got that pedigree, he's got that ability to, you know, really be of the level that we require. And he's previously like been rated and valued much, much higher, of course, than we find him at the moment. Celtic love a player that has a good international pedigree, that's came from a big club, a big academy, and someone that is itching to get into, you know, the top end of European football. And at 27 years of age, along with some of these other players we featured, I think Dorsch is just in a really good spot to come in for quite a nominal transfer fee and have the peak of their career be at Celtic. Now, I might be alone on this one, right? So, fair game for any shots you want to take on this one, okay? But when I was thinking about it, I was like, do you know what? There is sometimes a bit of a barrier between the fans and the club a little bit, right? And if the club wanted to maybe kind of jump, maybe bridge that gap a little bit and really just rub their nose in it a little bit more. As the Green Brigade put it in the last derby match, or the last Old Firm match that we actually had, your grandchildren will be Celtic fans. And if we really wanted to deliver that in a really nice way, and it might just be me that thinks that, maybe it's the wrong way to think about it, maybe you disagree or whatever, we could pursue Gio Reyna. Now, obviously, his father, Claudio Reyna, famously played for them and a few other teams in England and whatever, when he played football like 20 years ago or whatever. Gio Reyna has been one of the most frustrating wonderkids in European and world football over the last 5 or 6 years. Huge promise coming out of New York at the age of like 16, 17 or something like that. He's been at Dortmund ever since, and Dortmund love him. They play him every time they possibly can. He's very rarely fit enough for that level of football. We hear that time and time again from the American national team manager, whoever that has been over the last 5 or 6 years. We hear it consistently from Dortmund. They bring him into the team. He starts to strut his stuff. He breaks down. He's been on loan at Nottingham Forest. It's not really worked out for him there. This guy needs to take a step down, needs to move out of the German Bundesliga, needs to move into a league where he can be managed a bit better in terms of his injuries and how like the intense the actual matches are. You know, like Bundesliga football, particularly for Borussia Dortmund, is very physically stressful, you know, so I think he needs it for his career more than anything. With his contract being up in 1 year once we get to the summer, Borussia Dortmund have said, like, we are done with Reyna. He is available on the market. And if we look at his career for Borussia Dortmund, you can see even when he broke into the team when he was like super young, like the promise this guy has to be such a he's scored some worldies. He's an absolute peach of a flair player. Make no mistake about it. Versatility isn't really something you'd get out of Reina. He is an attacking player. Maybe he can play him wide and stuff like that, but he's certainly like an attacking midfielder, number 10 type. And doing this for Dortmund in the Bundesliga and the Champions League, and over the last 4 years or whatever, now and again, this is pretty good going. But ultimately, it's been physical limitations that have restricted him more than anything. If we look at his time at Nottingham Forest, there's not really much to write home about here. But again, getting into the Premier League, doing a little bit of this, it shows his talent should take him to this level, but physically he's maybe just not quite got that. And again, this is a theme of something that we hear about at the top end of European and world football all the time. This is his tail of the tape for America over the last however long as well. Not that great because he's very rarely fit, and when America are playing him, they're normally really pushing him to bring him into the team to sell shirts and all that kind of stuff as well, and kind of be that golden generation alongside Pulisic and co. But this is a transfer that, yeah, it might not be down your street. I'm not completely sure it's down mine either, but again, he's a decorated player. He's won some stuff, and he's actually won the cup here when he's played with Dortmund and that Bellingham Sancho kind of team and all the rest of it. And if we signed this guy, wouldn't it just really rub their noses in it that your grandkids will be Celtic fans? Your players' kids will play for us. They will not play for you if they're any good. Obviously, they want to play for us. So I think if you could get this done at a very nominal transfer fee, or you could get one of Celtic's kind of tried and tested moves of a loan with buy options, something like that. He's just really that kind of X factor player. And again, because of his situation, see if he doesn't get in the team for a month because he's not fit. It's not going to be a problem. It's not going to cause any disharmony or whatever. And equally, when he does get fully fit and firing, you're still going to manage him to optimise him. So you're then still going to give significant minutes to the rest of the midfield that we currently have already. It's not that he would totally come in and disorder everything and ruin the squad harmony, the balance, all that kind of thing. In a very similar way, there's a bit of a running theme, a bit of a running thread of damaged goods coming through some of the videos, some of the pics we've got in this video today. So apologies for that, but the Bundesliga has some very high value, transfer value players in it, so there's not a lot of easy shopping for Celtic, especially if we're trying to keep it somewhat realistic of players that we could feasibly afford and attract, and we're not just going, oh, let's just go sign Tom Bischoff and all the Florian Wirtzes and that kind of thing. And that leads me on to Aster Vranckx. Now, Aster Vranckx was one of the most highly sought after young Belgian midfielders coming out of Belgium. He made his debut in the league at 15, super early kind of bloomer, bringing into the squad. His physical attributes, kind of similar to Skelly Alvaro, was one of the things that really kind of stood him apart from everyone else. Since breaking through at Mechelen, he's went to Wolfsburg, and it's not really worked out for big Aster Vranckx, to be honest with you. He's fit and available. He's just not quite ready to play full-time Bundesliga football. He does come in when required. He does do a shift. He's been A-OK. But Wolfsburg haven't been totally convinced by him. AC Milan actually took him in on loan, spent a couple of million quid for the privilege of loaning him. They had a buy option. They did not exercise it. And again, Serie A is maybe just a bit of a step above where Aster Vranckx is at the moment. He's had a couple of caps for Belgium and done none too bad. Opposition levels, yeah, Estonia and Luxembourg, I suppose it maybe doesn't tell you too much, but Belgium are capping him. And these performances were coming in 2020, which at point of recording was 5 years ago. So when he was 16, 17. And in the Belgian league, scores and performances like this definitely show potential. But the moves he's made, the way his career's panned out thus far, his potential has really went unrealised at the moment. Just over 1m80, 22 years of age. And again, he's Belgian. I'm sure he'll be able to make a pal in the team quite easily. His contract with Wolfsburg is a massive one. It's on the way to 2029. Highly decorated at youth level, like we spoke about, but quite firmly, it does say here he has the ability to play attacking midfielder, but having watched Aster Vranckx, he is quite firmly a defensive midfielder. And again, kind of similar to what I've said with some of these other damaged goods players, there would be no expectation from signing this guy that he is going to play every game and he should be in the best 11, and then when he realises that Callum McGregor's in that spot, throws the toys at the pram. Shouldn't really be the case. This guy needs to get into a team that's playing at the highest level possible. Bundesliga and Serie A is a bit too high for him, but a team like us that dominate league, win medals and play Champions League football is probably the right move for him next in his career. And I think if we were going to try and bring in a defensive midfielder that is going to be affordable but have that kind of ceiling on, they could progress and we could maybe move them on, Aster Vranckx is a very, very good prospect. Now, similar to last week when we looked at France, we also went into the second tier of France. We're going to do the same again for Germany, and you might be thinking, Germany, the second division? Why would we go shopping in there? Now, the all the second divisions, to be quite honest with you, maybe with the exception of Serie B, but Spain, France, Germany and England, their second divisions are super high level in places. Some players, some clubs and all the rest of it. We won't be going after this guy, but just to give you an example, Stefanos Tsimas here, 19-year-old Greek. Would we call him a wonder kid at 19? Perhaps. He's just signed a mega money move in January to move to Brighton, and we all know how everyone thinks about Brighton's scouting and how well they do. So, again, if they can shop in the Bundesliga too, I guess so could we. This is a guy that's a Greek champion that went from PAU Salonika to Nuremberg, and from Nuremberg, the short time he's been there, Brighton have spotted him and they've made the move permanent, and then they've loaned him back to Nuremberg for the remainder of the year. So there's definitely high level talent that's in Bundesliga 2. I don't think we would be in the mix for him, but another player of this same kind of level whose future is undecided at this moment in time, I think he'll be too rich for our blood, is Ibrahim Maza. We're not going to spend much time on this because if you go and just jump on Twitter and type in Maza transfer, you will see quite quickly that he's probably kind of close to maybe joining someone like Stuttgart. Very highly rated across European second divisions, of course, but also the fact that in January we had the likes of AC Milan and FC Porto checking in on him. So 20 million euros is probably where Hertha Berlin are looking to do a deal here for this one. And like I say, it might be a little bit too rich for our blood, but it's just to paint that picture of, don't knock the Bundesliga 2 because there is some talent in there for sure. And when we look at Bundesliga 2 real quickly before we jump into a few of the picks I've got here, Cologne and Hamburg are probably going to get promoted. Over the last 3 seasons, Hamburg have done a great job of always just missing out on promotion. And as you can see here, down to maybe Dusseldorf in 9th, really with the amount of games that are left to go, the promotion picture could change quite a bit. I do think Cologne are going to be quite cushy, and Hamburg are probably not going to be too far off either, but the rest of these clubs could go on a wee run, and you know what it's like in this second tier picture. You get a good run of games, the makeup of the whole thing can change. But as we scroll down, there is some pretty big clubs here, and some of these clubs have got some pretty good players in them. Teams like Hertha Berlin, Darmstadt especially. But the first one we're going to look at is at Nuremberg, who have Tsimas, who's just went to Brighton. So Nuremberg obviously know a thing or two about scouting, I would say. And on 41 points at the moment, I'm going to say it's unlikely that they reach the Bundesliga this year, which would reduce their potential to keep a hold of their star players and make it more likely that any star players they have might be interested in a transfer. And again, we are after defensive midfielders. They have a 22-year-old by the name of Casper Jander on their books at the moment. And this is a guy that was unknown to me until quite recently. And his form in Bundesliga 2 has been exceptional as a defensive midfielder. He's also capable of getting in amongst it with assists and goals, that sort of thing. But he is a defensive powerhouse. This guy shows up every game. Games versus the top of the table, bottom end teams. Look at that 8-3 against Jan Regensburg. I say there's quality in some areas of these divisions, don't get me wrong. But ultimately he is a defensive midfielder that has that flair, has a bit of talent where he's not just a tackler, he's not just an enforcer, but can get involved in some bits and bobs as well. And this is a guy at 22 years of age who has just kind of maybe missed the boat on getting access to top level German football. He came through the academy at Borussia Dortmund before moving to Schalke. And to be honest with you, I thought I was going to see place of birth on this being like Denmark or something, because his name does feel quite Danish, doesn't it? But firmly German youth international and all the rest of it. His contract with Nuremberg is up in 2028. I suspect they're going to take a few million quid for a guy like this because he has a prospect. He has been in big academies before and he's clearly performing for them. There's no two ways about it. If his transfer value is 5 million euros and that's what it would take to sign him, I would just do that. I think that would be a great purchase for us. There's maybe a bit more pressure on a guy like this to have the sort of season and the sort of exposure to the first team that Arne Engels had, which maybe, I don't know if it upsets the apple cart, but it puts more pressure on squad rotation, squad management if we brought a guy like this in. But this is a kind of no compromise. This is a great youth prospect, fits the bill of the exact sort of player that we're looking to bring in, and isn't going to cost peanuts. He's not damaged goods. He's actually on the up compared to some of the other Bundesliga players that we just looked at. So Casper Jander, I think, would be an absolute great shout. And one of the teams that are on to get promoted is Cologne. Okay, now Cologne are one of the yo-yo teams in Germany for the most part. Like, they've got a great fan base. They famously did well in Europe, where they played Arsenal, didn't they? And they took a great away support to all their away games, etc. Cologne is like one of those old school good German teams, as it were. But they are yo-yoing. They're up and down. They're up and down for the most part. And they have a guy by the name of Eric Martel. Now, Eric Martel is a player I've followed for the last couple of years, and he has got like a really high ceiling, really good, talented midfielder here who kind of does a little bit of everything. Good defensive midfielder, good playmaker as well. If you really needed him to play further up the pitch, I think you could. But in recent times as well, he's also played in at centre-back. So a lot of versatility, high footballing IQ here. He's come out of the Leipzig Academy, again a German youth international, formerly an Austria Vienna player. I've not looked to see if he's linked up with Nicholas Kuhn, but if we did need a character reference, I think Nico could maybe get us one for that. But again, this is a guy that's doing great in the Bundesliga too, in the top team in the division. And even if they get promoted, Eric Martel knows that they're not going to be likely to finish top half. And if we come in at, €6 million looks to be his transfer fee, I think that would be a good deal for Cologne. Maybe they were trying to skin us for another couple of quid because we've been in the Champions League or whatever. But again, very high value guy. Only way is up for him in his career. His contract is up in 2026. So when they do get promoted, he's only got 12 months left, and then they will have a decision on their hands. German under-21 captain, 24 caps, 2 goals. And let's say out of the Leipzig Academy, similar to Nicholas Kuhn again, they must know each other. Then again, I really do think this is a win-win transfer. Really gives you great versatility. Imagine he came in as a midfielder and ended up like being our best centre-back or something. And guys that have high football IQ, high talent level have came from that kind of, like elite academy kind of background, and are significant youth internationals as well, never mind being captains. We love that, Paulo Bernardo and all the rest of it. Just as an absolute box ticket, it feels like, for Celtic. It's just if you can get a deal done and find a price that works for everyone. Now, one of the teams that will almost, I would, pretty certain, guaranteed, they will not get promoted to the Bundesliga this year was Hertha Berlin, and they have got a guy by the name of Michael Cuisance. Now, you might have heard of Michael Cuisance. He kind of broke onto the scene in the Bundesliga for Borussia Mönchengladbach a few years ago, and at the age of like 18, 19, so two-footed, was working on both sides, could play attacking midfield. Bayern Munich signed him, and in that time, I forget who the managers all were and stuff like that, but Bayern Munich were going through a kind of transitional period. They signed Cuisance, they signed Joshua Zirkzee, they signed a few other guys, and then it didn't really work out for them. And Cuisance, Zirkzee, and somebody else, I forget who it was, but they all kind of batched in and labelled as being like bad eggs, bad attitude, and all the rest of it. And to be quite honest with you, Michael Cuisance, ever since then, has been in a downward spiral across his career, playing for like Marseille, Venezia. Now he finds himself at the bottom half of Bundesliga 2 at Hertha Berlin. But Michael Cuisance has been one of their standout players this year. And if you want to think about who is this guy like, just think Matt O'Reilly, but French. It's kind of the best way of putting it. And he has really recaptured some great form for them this year. And I've been following this guy. I wouldn't say I watch him all the time or I'm a huge fan of him, but around this period here, where he's been trapping in like his lowest scores out of 100 of 60s all the way up to like 96 this year, he was getting some interviews done in Germany, and he put his turn in fortunes and maybe the resurgence he's hoping to have in his career down to getting his own psychologist, his own trainer. He does everything, obviously trains with the squad and everything, but he's like cut out all the crap around his kind of periphery, and he surrounds himself now with like personal trainers and staff people that are paid to optimize him physically, mentally, and everything else as well. And like I say, stylistically, French Matt O'Reilly is the way to think of this guy. And if he is back on the straight and narrow and he's really kind of got his act together, this is a guy with a super high ceiling of talent, has proven it already at the highest level, and has fallen off a cliff, but he's managed to just grab a little foothold there, grab a little grip onto the wall, onto the side of the mountain, and he's looking to get himself back in a great team again, essentially. His transfer value at the moment is €3.5 million. He signed for Berlin last summer. His contract is up in 2027, and it does say he's like a highly decorated like Bundesliga champion and all the rest of it, right? I'm not too sure. We'll have a look at it. I'm not too sure how much he played for Bayern in these seasons to really earn these medals. I'm not sure if this was just down to squad registration and whatever. So let's go and have a wee peek at that. How much did he actually play for Bayern if he's got all those medals? Off the bench against Stuttgart and off the bench against Schalke. So yeah, I wouldn't say he's like a Bundesliga champion, double winner and all that kind of stuff, but he's been in those squads, he's been in those environments, was a highly decorated France youth international as well, and he has been around the block, like you can see here. He's even been at Sampdoria. I didn't realise that myself. But yeah, he has turned the corner. He's really got himself back on the straight and narrow, as I said here. In market value at the moment, you're talking about 1 million to 3 million. Maybe because of his obvious talent, ability and all the rest of it, maybe Berlin try and skin you for something closer to 5 million euros because it's Celtic or whatever. But sincerely, like, you know, this would be one of the ones I would really try and push for. I think it would just work on so many levels. The player's desire, his actual ability, the versatility, the quality, the transfer fee, really everything about it screams good transfer. Now, Hanover are in that maybe promotion picture still. They've got a kid by the name of Nicolo Tresaldi, who's half German, half Italian, bit of a wonder kid, has a bit of a reputation in Germany, but like you can see, if you think back to like Simas and some of the other guys we looked at, Maza, you know, he's not that level, quite clearly. So he's like got high potential. He's quite a tricky player, can play really everywhere. He can play attacking midfield, on the wings. You could kind of play him up front, but I don't think he's really that kind of guy. If you think about the Scottish League, if we look at this game here, which was a 2-each draw with Hamburg, you can see he plays with Havard Nielsen here, who's a bit of a target man. Tresaldi has the ability to drop into the little pockets of space, play on the right, play on the left, that sort of thing. So quite a creative attacking player. 11 youth caps for Germany under 21s, 5 goals. His contract has 12 months left when we get to the summer as well. And if they don't secure promotion, you bet your bottom dollar he's going to get itchy feet. He's only ever played for Hanover. He's came through them as a, you know, the youth prospect and all the rest of it. He is labelled here as a centre forward, so that kind of comes from the thing we just looked at, of course. But a versatile attacker. And if they don't get promoted, he does get itchy feet. You know, 5 million euros is probably about right where we would need to pay for this. And again, a guy like this is coming from a team that is in the Bundesliga, not looking to get promoted. Is he going to be raging if he doesn't start over Jota and Kuhn or Maeda or whatever? Probably not, but he'll have the belief that he has the ability to change that up and get himself into the team and push the level of the squad. And with the profile he currently has, if we sign this guy at 20, 21 years of age, give him a year or two, again, you're thinking about that Celtic player trading model. He kind of ticks that box as well, doesn't he? Now, like we mentioned earlier, versatility is a high valued asset, I think, for any Celtic player that we're going to be bringing in. And one of the most versatile players that has proper techers, proper good football ability that we should certainly look at. I don't think it's a definite, oh yeah, we should definitely buy this guy. But his name is Killian Corredor. He is French. He plays for Darmstadt, who will not get promoted. And he has been one of their main players since making the move from Rodez, who are in Ligue 2 in France. And this guy takes set pieces. He plays left mid, plays centre mid, can play up front. Is a talisman, is a guy that kind of leads the team, gets involved, and when they're having big games, he is the guy that's making it happen. He is pulling the strings, he's putting the ball in the back of the net, he's setting up his teammates. And previously, even at Rodez, who were not a great team, he was the only guy kind of leading the way for them. I think that's his local club, so I think his brother still plays for them. But since moving to Germany, which is a bit of a step up in terms of the qualities that he has, like to be able to demonstrate them for a not even a better team in Germany, but be able to be better in Germany, I think is a huge feather in his cap for the development he's made, the clear ability that he has. Is he definitely a Champions League level player? Jury's still out on that one. But as far as a forward goes, a guy that has actual attributes we would want in the squad, has some sincere versatility as well. At 24 years of age, I think this is a guy that's coming into the prime of his career that, again, would jump at the chance to come to a club like Celtic, whether it be the option of playing him up front through the middle, on the wide areas. Again, a prolific kind of set piece taker as well, which we need also. 2 million euros is the transfer fee. His contract, nobody knows when it expires, but I dare say it won't be an expensive one to get him out of, as it were. Now, if we jump onto this page here, this is our complete transfer target list. We're now up to 34 players across the 3 countries that we've looked at. I think we wouldn't say leagues at this point. Lots of different shapes and sizes of players for the most part, but mainly midfielders. We've got 19 on our list at the moment, 8 forwards, 2 goalkeepers and 5 defenders. And the average age, most of the players we're looking at are between the age of 19 to 23. We've got a bunch of them 24 to 28. Not too many players 29 to 33. I think one of them was Junior Ito, and I can't remember the other one. And then we've got 2 players that are younger than 18. And we're now building this list up really nicely where we can actually see like a nice comparison across all the players that we've featured and how they all kind of stack up against each other. Now you do need to add in the context of like some of them like playing Scotland, some of them playing France and whatever. But it's nice to see them all kind of like now kind of laying on top of each other, and we can see like, you know, who is actually featuring the most, who's kind of scoring the most, you know, successful actions to be captured statistically, or scoring goals, making assists, that sort of thing. So these stats are all over the last 15 matches. We'll put it to the last 40. See if it makes it a bit more interesting. But we'll build this list up, and then what we're going to do once we're kind of get towards the end of this series, we'll strip it back a bit, especially when we get to the end of the European season and we've got like a full season's worth of data for all the players that we're highlighting and itemizing on the list here. And then it's great for comparing and contrasting them for things like, you know, tackles won, blocks. We can even go all the way up to, you know, all the other statistics that are a bit more exciting, like shots on target, dribbles, big chances created, all that good stuff. So I'm really liking the way the list is panning out so far. I'm really enjoying how eclectic it is, you know, different shapes and sizes like I mentioned already, lots of different players and lots of different price points, stages of their career, etc. I did mention in the France video that Chotard was a top target for me. I think he still remains my top midfield target personally, because I just think that that's a perfect situation in terms of where Montpellier are, etc. We spoke about that in the last video. Feel free to check that out. And I think like Martel might be joining him in terms of someone. I think that versatility of centre back and centre mid is something not to be overlooked or undervalued by us, certainly. And yeah, as we go on, we'll maybe try and filter this down to like our top 10. Like who should be the guys we actually go after. Next week's video, I'm not too sure where we're going to cover next. We'll maybe let the next week of transfer rumour mill activity maybe steer us in that direction again after Elvis in this video and Heba Girassi on the last one. I would like to go to Spain because I just watch a lot of Spanish football and it's just one to kind of check off the list and then maybe start to venture further afield, like Japan, the MLS, maybe some of the other leagues across European football like Croatia and Norway. It was actually, I've had a few messages about Norway to look there, Scandinavia, etc. So there's a lot to get through. I hope you enjoyed this one, guys. On screen now is the playlist of all the transfer speculation videos we've done in this series in a nice convenient playlist, as well as something else that we've made on the channel that YouTube thinks you might enjoy. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button for more content like this. Hail, hail, and Mon the Hoops.